Good news, you're here just in time. Here's another Laneway Talks.
Welcome everybody to Laneway Talks. In this episode we'll be talking to Chris Turner, a tried and true guitarist from Australia. We won't say from the UK, and we're going to look at his life in music. Good afternoon, Chris. How are you?
G'day, Vince. How you doing?
I'm very good, thanks. So as we start all our podcasts, tell us a bit about where you came from. You're Australian, and where did you grow up?
All right. Well, I grew up in South London, about 12 miles. I mean, it's 20 k's from London. I went to a dubious school called Horsdown, which is not a good start in life, but right. Anyway, different spelling. I got interested in the guitar about 11 or 12, and one of the tracks, the songs that made me interested in the guitar was El Paso by Marty Robbins.
Tell me first. So,
yeah.
You're living in the UK. What age did you move to Australia?
Well, first my parents bought some land in New Zealand, so I went with them when I was 17 to New Zealand, just out of Auckland. And I tried for 5 years to get gigs and run bands and do that, but it was hopeless. It was just no work. It was
too small.
Too small. The government used to take 50% of your band income, and you had to survive on the 50% till halfway through the following financial year. It was just shocking. It was no dancing allowed in the pub. Just shocking.
Let's just pull it back from there then. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Let's go back to the UK then, because you're there till you're about 17. When did you pick up a guitar?
When I was 12.
Okay, so you're a bit of a late bloomer there, really, aren't you?
Yeah, well, 12 is, someone showed me a guitar, and as I say, Marty Robbins, the guitar work in that track is phenomenal. And, of course, I didn't know who it was or what was going on. I just liked the sound of the guitar. So my parents bought me an acoustic guitar, and I was hopelessly trying to copy that sort of stuff.
Did you teach yourself, or did you go to lessons when you got that guitar?
I had a couple of lessons on the acoustic guitar. My parents paid for those. I didn't learn much. So what I did is I bought the sheet music to the stuff that I liked, and by then it was skiffle music, and so skiffle, and then the Shadows came along, so I was also teaching myself from the sheet music and copying the records, of course, slowing the records down like we could do in those days. So, that's really where I got going. And then I decided in my youthful arrogance to start a band.
But you were essentially you taught yourself to play, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Until I got to Australia, where I went to the Academy of Guitar and the Conservatory of Music.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll come to that. So you've got this, I say very lucky, rich music background in the sense that you're in the UK, and the UK was where it was all happening. There was no doubt about it.
Yes, for sure.
We copied, as you just told us about New Zealand. There's nothing happening there. That's why they all come to Australia.
That's it.
And, but you're in that and you're in London. So you're in the thick of it. I mean, it must have been such a good time to be roaming around as a budding musician, as a young teenager.
Yes, well, the people around me when I was 12 and 13, I mean, I used to probably when I was about 14, I used to see Bill Wyman in his motorbike and sidecar with his wife on the back, on the pillion, and his amp and guitar sticking out the sidecar. So, I mean, that was the people. David Bowie used to be at the local gigs with his incarnations of his band.
Yeah.
Peter Frampton did a number of shows on the same bill with Frampton, Bowie, Steve Marriot.
Is that before he joined Humble Pie?
Oh yes, way before. He had a band called Steve Marriot's Moment, which turned into the Small Faces.
Yeah.
And they had huge hits in London, All or Nothing and Shalalali.
And Peter Frampton didn't join till they became Humble Pie, correct?
That's right, yes. Yeah. No, both of us wanted to play with Steve. He got the gig.
Well, interestingly, watching the Small Faces, you could I mean, if you look at the really early Small Faces, it's that 60s sound. But when you get towards the end of that Small Faces, he's really getting into that rhythm and blues rock, isn't he?
Yes, well, he got the American influence, didn't he? Yeah.
And, and then you get this band, so that disbands, and you get this band called Humble Pie who form, and that's a quintessential English rock band, really, weren't they? They're there with Free.
Well, they were heavy, weren't they? Heavy rock band.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But what you've got to remember as well is that the Faces, when Stevie left, they got Rod Stewart in, and they became the Faces.
Right. Out of everything I've been through in my life, and I've got some of Rod Stewart and the Faces, I didn't know it was the Small Faces with Steve Marriot, and then it became the Faces with Rod Stewart. I never knew that.
Yeah, well, see, they were knocking around in South London. They didn't have a singer, so Rod didn't have much happening. So, they brought him in, and same guys.
I have this absolutely fantastic vinyl of the Faces with Rod Stewart, and is it Tetsu on bass, the Asian guy? Unbelievable record, just fantastic.
Yes. I've got a number of records by them. Yeah, fantastic.
So so you'd left by the time they'd started getting on, or? Yeah.
No, I left in 1965. Yeah. So I was there for the all this stuff around London, all these gigs.
Yeah.
I supported Bowie, although we were all on the same bill is probably a better way to put it.
Yeah.
My band, Frampton, Stevie Marriot with his Steve Marriot moment.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was so many. I supported like Johnny Dankworth and Cleo Lane and big open air
Cleo
festival.
Lane, there's a name, isn't it, hey?
Yeah, so all these blokes walked on stage, a big stage, open air concert, and they all walked on with chairs. I thought, what's going on here? And they all sat down, put the music in front, and off they went. They just blew us off the stage,
Well, tell me, you've gone to New Zealand. After New Zealand, you obviously come to Australia. But why would you not have gone back to the UK? Was it a family thing, a fear of not being with family?
I didn't want to get that far from their mother and father.
Yeah.
And also I knew, because Kevin Borridge we used to pass, our bandwagons used to pass in Auckland, and I knew that he'd gone over there, and I was starting to read the trade mags. And
was that the Lardy Does? That's the Lardy Does? Yeah.
Yeah, the Lardy Does, yeah. And he was doing all right, so I thought, bugger this, I'm going to go over there and see what... And I did mean to come back to New Zealand, but I never did.
But did your parents stay in New Zealand?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, gotcha. So then you've gone over to what we call the Big Smoke, right?
Yes.
And what we now call going to America, the Big Smoke. But anyway, it's a hop, skip and a jump.
Yes.
So you get over here. What happens? I mean, what do you do? As you just said, you know Kevin's over here, and there's a lot of other New Zealand. I mean, who was that Maori singer who was in the late 60s?
Oh, Lou Rawls?
No, he was absolutely unbelievable. And he was...
Oh, Leo Di Castro?
That's the one. Oh, my God.
Yeah, Leo.
What a singer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant! And he was another one I followed, really.
Yeah.
Over from Auckland, and what happened to me was that I ended up in a flat in Bondi, of course.
Yeah. And
within 2 weeks, I'd answered an ad. I answered a few ads from this band that was forming in Wentworth, of all places, which took me a bus, a train and a cab to get to the audition. And they were a package show signed up to go to Vietnam.
Oh.
And I got the gig.
Can I ask you at that stage too, because you've come over from New Zealand, it's kind of coming your first gig here, but what kind of guitar are you playing?
I had a gold top, a Les Paul gold top.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and...
I haven't seen a lot of Les Pauls. You're a real Fender man, aren't you?
I'm a Telecaster man, really. I'd left my Telecaster in New Zealand.
Right.
Because I thought Australia was more rock and roll. I don't know. I don't know why I brought that one, but...
well, good one anyway.
Yeah. Well, what happened to me at the Auckland airport was that I'd sold my Zephyr 6, my car.
Yeah.
I got all the money I could get together, and I had $500 to come to Australia.
Which is a lot of money, isn't it? It's a lot of money.
It was in those days. But the New Zealand tax department stopped me at the airport and took $490 off. No, $410 off. I had $90 to come to Australia.
What was that payment for?
That was just theft. There's no computers in those days. They reckoned that the other band members that I'd had hadn't paid their tax, so I was responsible.
What? That's insane.
Horrible.
That's insane.
Well, I was really worried because like $90 is not a lot of money.
No.
When you got to get a flat, you got to get a comm. You don't know what's going on in a new country. Yeah. We had no contacts. I just had to start from scratch. I had a suitcase and a guitar. So,
yeah.
So, but anyway, so I got the gig in this package show. Within a week, we were off to Mount Isa for a 6-week stint, and that was the Wild West up there in those days, the miners.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they still had hitching rails in the main street for horses.
I mean, what were you thinking when you see that? I mean, what the hell am I doing here?
Well, I was at that point, because that's where I got to the $90, that I was happy to have any work, and they were paying good money. So, I knew that I'd come back from Mount Isa with some money.
So who was in the band? Anybody known?
Well, there's Charlie Ferrugia, who I'm still working with.
Yeah, I know that name.
There was a bloke called... I can't remember the name. So we had a girl singer, Lynn Morgan, who's unfortunately gone now. Yeah, so John Shaw, I don't know whether you know him, he was a recording artist.
No.
Anyway, but yeah, so...
So that all happens and you come back to Sydney, correct?
Yes, and in the meantime, the agency had booked us into the Philippines and Vietnam.
Right.
So
Any qualms about going to Vietnam? Not worried?
Well, I mean, the obvious ones, like, hang on, it's a war zone.
Yeah, exactly.
But they were paying at that spot, I think it was $150 US.
Yeah, which is a lot, which is thousands now.
Well, the average electrician was earning $40 a week. So, and the American dollar was worth twice, so that was $300 a week, and the average bloke, a tradesman, was earning 40, but so
that's good money.
The money overcame, but
so off you go off to Vietnam, do your stint as as an artist, and you get back. So what are you thinking?
Hang on, it's not quite that simple.
Oh, isn't it? Okay.
Right. Okay. Well, we did the 2-week tour of the Philippines, which was hard work. The tour manager carried a gun. I mean, it was that wild.
Well, funny you should say that, because I flew into the Philippines probably 30 years ago, right? Yes. And as we fly in and we get into the airport, around the airport, it's a shanty town. There's, basically our roofs, made of tin. There's all these little shanty houses made of those tin. I think, gee, what's going on here? And we get in and we taxi up to the, whatever, to get out. And we're only there for a couple of hours. And everything is surrounded. There's army people everywhere with machine guns. And I go, was there some kind of commotion going on? They go, no, they're here every day.
That's right. Yeah.
Go, what the hell? What's going on here?
Yes, it was a wild town, and as I say, our tour manager was armed, and if we wanted to stop and get a hamburger or something like that, he'd come with us with his gun out. Yes, and it was very strange, but we were staying at this Flash Hotel in Manila, and there was a 15-piece band playing downstairs. They were doing exact covers. I couldn't believe that they were doing Beach Boys. They were doing
your set. Exact. They were doing your set.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Anyway, I was hauled up because they must have recognised a musician, and did a couple of tunes with them. But I mean, I that was my first experience of Filipino bands that copy everything exactly.
Yeah, gotcha.
You know, completely parrot fashion and do it well too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was the Philippines. Then we went on to Vietnam.
Yeah. Did you do any American bases in Manila? In Philippines?
Yes, that's what we were doing. We were hired by the American Army.
Right.
That was the American agent was dealing with our Australian agent. And I'm sure there was an awful lot of money going missing in between them, you know.
So,
all right, now,
where do we go to from there?
Right, from there, we did 3 months of 3 shows a day, 7 days a week. We had 2 Vietnamese dancers with us.
Yeah.
And still our girl singer.
Well, that can't be a bad thing.
Well, it turns out that I upset one of these Vietnamese dancers.
Yeah.
And she dobbed me in to the local Gestapo.
Oh, yeah.
Who was her cousin. And so on the last night of the tour, I got hauled out with a gun in my face.
Yeah.
And supposedly busted for drugs. But, so I got thrown in jail and everyone else went home.
So how long did you have to stay there for?
Well, the law in the Philippines is French law, so you're guilty till you prove yourself innocent. Right. So I was locked up,
right,
with no help. The only person who helped me, and God love her to this day, was the girl from the agency, Helen, who fought for me, you know, and got me a lawyer and did all this, and because obviously there was no drugs, it wasn't, you know, there was nothing on me. Anyways, the second court, I got pronounced guilty on the first court case, not guilty on the second court case because they didn't have any evidence.
Yeah.
So I escaped. So I ran to the airport and
got on a plane and got the hell out, and never been back since.
Yes. Well, to see my sentence, if I'd have been got guilty on the second, was life or death.
That's fantastic.
Death by firing squad or life imprisonment.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So it was quite a shock that all of a sudden I'm sort of cruising along playing the guitar, and next minute I'm facing the death penalty.
Yeah,
so
fantastic.
I was quite pleased to get out.
It's amazing at the level of sadistic violence and unfair play that occurs around the world. If we only just look at Russia, what's going on there right now, and I saw an article, on that yesterday, which was basically saying it's just a country run by the mafia. They're just the mob.
Yeah.
And different factions are involved. And I was just thinking, this is just, and what it all revolves around is money, more money, money, and more money. And, there you go. It was happening then, 40, 50 years ago.
Well, see, I was so innocent. I mean, all I wanted to do was play the guitar and make a racket, you know. And I was quite happy going along, and I upset this girl over luggage or something. I can't remember, but she did for me. And that she was ruthless, you know. I've got a photo of her actually, but so when I got to Singapore, I just went nuts. I got to the hotel in Singapore, and I was so relieved to get out of there.
Oh yeah,
that taught me a lesson in life that you got to look after yourself. Better off smiling at people than telling them what you think, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really taught me a lesson. So when I got back to Australia, I formed another band. It was called The Action. It was more of a rock and roll band than a show band. We went on the road for about 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what are we talking here? 70, 71?
71 going into 72.
Yeah, okay. And what genre are we doing?
Well, it was getting more rock and roll. It was getting more English rock and roll. Not much blues in those days because the crowds didn't like it.
Yeah, okay.
They weren't familiar with it.
No.
We were doing a bit of James Brown and that, but I'm not really a funky player. So we did like 3 months in Rocky, 3 months in Townsville, 3 months in Brisbane, 3 months in Melbourne. It was like that, and I didn't get back to Sydney for almost 2 years.
Were you earning any money?
Oh, good money, really good money.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Yeah, good.
they were paying really good money because you were working 6 nights a week, you see, and they'd accommodation supplied.
Yeah, okay.
It'd either be a motel or a house.
Well, as we know, as most hotels or pubs in those days, I know a lot of gigs weren't at pubs, but pubs had accommodation upstairs. You know,
That's right.
you know.
Well,
and-
we did it somewhere in Croydon, in Melbourne. Croydon, that's not far from Melbourne, is it? There was another
Yeah,
gig
that's
we
correct.
did 3 months, and that was upstairs. It was really old Australian accommodation, but we had a ball there 3 months.
Yeah. So, okay, the action, what, does that come to a conclusion after a couple of years?
Yes. Well, what happened there, I decided that I was going to get creative and try and get a record deal. And I started an 8-piece band with 2 drummers.
Had you been writing your own original material during this time?
Yes, I was starting to do it then, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
An 8-piece band. An 8-piece. Who
2 drummers.
That's unbelievable.
Well, I had the money, you see.
Yeah.
I was earning the money.
Yes. 2 drummers. Why 2 drummers? Only Doobie Brothers did that, didn't they?
Yes, well, there's a number of bands that influenced me that did that, and one was more of a percussionist, and one was the drummer sort of thing, you know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and I had alto sax and tenor sax, keyboards, guitar, bass. I went down to Chequers, which was a nightclub in Sydney,
Yeah.
and said to Mr. Casey down there, I said, look, I've got an 8-piece band. I'm looking for a gig. The agent won't book me. He said, well, look, if you do an hour spot on Saturday night when it's packed, we'll see what you do.
Yeah, okay.
So I had to rehearse the guys setting up the gear.
Yeah.
We had 15 minutes to set up and pull down between the main act.
It's hard work. The old gear up on stage and gear off stage. It's hard work.
Yes. I had to rehearse the guys actually doing this. When our last couple of rehearsals were actually putting up and pulling down and getting it out the back of Chequers. Anyway, we played well. We did our hour sets. They loved it.
Yeah.
And I did like 9 or 10 years at Chequers.
Wow.
Regularly. And of course, I trimmed the band down as the money, went
Got
down.
thinner.
So
Yeah.
it got thinner. So dropped it down to
So now you're talking 9 years, okay? It's a long time.
Yeah.
What are you doing in between there? You must be doing other things. You couldn't just be doing that.
No, well, I studied the jazz and rhythm at the Conservatory of Music.
Yeah.
Part time.
Yes.
I joined Buffalo.
Oh, okay. This is in that spate of time.
74 or 5. I joined Buffalo for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And recorded with them. I recorded the band Drain, of course, but I couldn't get a deal. Of course.
Drain. You haven't got any tapes of that, have you?
No.
I think you said you threw them out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I threw everything out. Yeah. It took the Drain was because it got that name because that's where you put all your money, your time, your rehearsal, your relationship, creativity, everything went down this drain.
Yeah.
So people started calling it that. So
well, how did you find your time with Buffalo? And it was only for the one record. So, and it was at the tail end of their career.
Well, it's just before Dave went to Dave Tice went to England. He lost interest in the Buffalo, and
He joined the
they
Bishops,
were squabbling. Yeah, the Count Bishops. Yeah. They were squabbling with Sab Chase, their manager, and so I joined at a pretty rough time.
Yeah.
We did the album. We toured. We did tours with like Richie Blackmore and people like that. And it was 18 months, 2 years, something like that. Pete Wells left to start Rose Tattoo.
So he was there at the beginning when you were with the Buffalo?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, me and Pete got on real good. We were real good mates.
All right.
So he wanted me to go and join Rose Tattoo with him, but I didn't want to get tattoos.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a personal thing, isn't it?
And also, I wasn't real keen on his management team. So,
gotcha.
And also, the Chris Turner band was earning more money than
So we've finished with Buffalo. Then you've started the Chris Turner Band.
The Chris Turner Band had been going since the end of Drain. I changed it to the Chris Turner Band.
So was that late 70s?
No, this is probably 74, 75, 76, somewhere around there. The Chris Turner Band came.
Yep.
Changed, sort of morphed.
Yeah.
But even when I was playing with Buffalo, I was still doing Chris Turner gigs.
Right.
So I just continued, the band. And the funny thing was, when I was doing Buffalo, the packed houses, I wasn't getting paid. And when I was doing Chris Turner Band to Chequers on a Monday night, I was getting paid. Everyone was getting paid.
Funny about that, isn't it, eh?
Yeah, well, this is what I say about when Pete moved to Rose Tattoo. It was the same thing.
Yeah.
I'd do like a week's tour with them to packed houses, like 1,200 people, and not get paid.
Yeah.
I'd drive to Melbourne, not get paid.
Yeah.
And we all know who they were.
Yeah, that's right. I've seen it all before. So therefore, you go, look, I'm not doing I played with the Rose Tattoo a bit, and I'm not doing that. So what are you thinking?
Well, at this point, I'd signed up with RCA Victor.
Yeah.
Who turned out they just wanted me for a tax loss. So they dumped the film clips, and I had 1,000 posters printed up, which they lost. They lost the master tapes. Obviously, it was just a tax write-off.
So is this My Guitar and Me?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So 1980.
So that was starting to go, and there was a bit of thing because the band was out there working 6-7 nights a week.
Mm.
But obviously the record company didn't want it to go. David Bowie's Christmas record and all the rest of it. All that stuff. So
well, it's always take the easy route out, not take the hard one where you got to work hard. That's what they do. All right.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So look, in 1980s, I formed Big Rock Records. Because I thought to myself, this is a mug's game. I'm never going to be David Bowie or whatever, but I can still sell product, So I got together with a business partner and we formed Big Rock. We're, still going.
And started distributing other people's work. Well, tell me, when My Guitar and Me comes out, and as you say, it doesn't do anything, they don't back it and whatever. So the band that's playing with Stacey K, what band is that? Because that's in the
band.
But is that so? That's prior to My Guitar and Me, or is it after?
That was a part. She was a part of the band. I got her in as a backing singer.
Yeah. But did that continue after My Guitar and Me for a while?
Yeah.
And the reason I bring it up is because you've got the live album out, and as we can tell listeners, the live album, I'm just kind of bringing it up now, it's live 79 to 84, and off that record, which isn't on that, there is a video out also, which is up online on our YouTube channel, and
all right,
and the song Tush, where Stacey K sings it, has had enormous streams, 50, 100,000 streams on YouTube.
Right.
On YouTube. We didn't have the song for the audio release. It didn't come with whatever you gave us. We know the story, how that all came about, and that's why I bring it up and say there was, you had this singer Stacey K, and Tush has been a song that you've covered a few times and always gets you good response. But then this album, which is this live album, which goes to 84. So you've got this band that's touring, and I mean, you're pulling big crowds at that time.
Yes, we were. We were doing good,
So that just shows, that we were still in the thick of the pub scene. And we know all our local artists that were happening at the time. The Mantles, Hoodoo Gurus were starting, Celebrate Rifles was starting. Everybody, it was really thick with music, and here you are doing these shows, and I think that was recorded in Adelaide to a packed house. Now, Adelaide's a hard city to crack. There is no doubt about it. So,
we definitely had a groundswell. I mean, and the thing is that we were playing rock and roll, just no frills, rock and roll.
Who was in that band? In that period?
Oh, look, I've got
Revolving Door, was it?
Revolving Door, yeah, like Higher and Fire. If you know, look, some of the best players in the country have played through the Chris Turner band.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can't remember on my website christurner.com.au. There's a list of the ones I can remember.
Yeah, gotcha.
But I tried to use, keep the band as professional and stable as I could.
Yeah.
So a few guys didn't work out, but most of the players, like Nick Cox from Tattoo, Pete Wells, Ronnie Peel, Johnny Dick.
There's a few names.
They've all been through my band,
Well, what happens in between? So So we've got what's happening in '80, and that band's playing around for another 2 or 3 years and doing whatever. But we've got that period '80 to '90, and because our next record comes out, Exile, in '90.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
What did you do for the other 5 years, 6 years there?
I was working around. I started a course in Rich Studios, guitar course, a professional guitar course.
Yes.
We had day students and night students.
Yes.
And I did that for a year or so.
Yeah.
I was also working with different bands, the 80s, Scattered Aces with Ronnie Peel.
Yes.
Pig Morgan.
Yeah.
Paul DeMarco.
Yeah. So there was so there's a lot of other side projects happening outside of just Chris Turner or the Chris Turner band, correct?
Well, the Chris Turner band was always there when I wasn't doing something else. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And because my business partner in Big Rock, Phil Shute, is, he calls himself Phil Simmons, but he was an agent and was booking stuff, so I had control of the bookings.
Yes.
Very much so that if I knew I wasn't going to be playing with, say, Tattoo, I worked with Stevie Wright, Jeff St. John I did.
Yes.
Who else? Oh, God.
Well, tell me, and I'm looking here at Exile, and tell me there's a song on there called Jack the Ripper. Now, that's a beauty.
Yes.
And, that surely's got to, be a backdrop for the industry, Jack the Ripper. But you could tell me it's totally different,
Well, no, actually, Jack the Ripper was done by, when I was a kid, I saw a band called Screaming Lord Sutch and the Savages. And Screaming Lord Sutch was a real exhibitionist. The club that I saw him in London, he was carried by his sax players. He was carried down the stairs and thrown on the stage in a coffin. And he'd leap out of the coffin with a top hat and tails and set fire to something. And one of his big songs that the whole crowd go nuts was Jack the Ripper, because you can imagine that 200 people yelling out Jack the Ripper. They loved it.
Well, so, yeah, go on.
When I worked, I was recording with Alan Lancaster from Status Quo in his studio, and I said, "You remember Jack the Ripper?" He said, "Oh, yeah, let's do that." So we did it. That was how that came about.
Well,
because he loved the song like I did.
Well, the song before it, called Boomerang Babe. Now, it's a very unusual song. It's not typical of what you do. And to this day, I could probably look it up now. It's getting airplay. I think I told you it's in Portugal or Finland or somewhere.
Oh, you're kidding.
And it gets streams every day. So someone's picked it up there.
Okay.
And
that's interesting.
And it, essentially is it a bit of a fun song because it's not reminiscent of what you do?
No, look, someone had said to me, "Why don't you write some Aussie songs?" That's all that happened. Yeah. So I can do that.
Well,
so that's what happened.
Well, there you go. The funniest songs get going. No, so we have Exile that comes out, right? So now from Exile onwards, we really start. Let's call it the 90s onwards. You really start to ramp up what you're releasing. Okay.
Yes.
You're obviously doing a lot of recording. We've got Guitar Stories Volume 1.
Yes.
You're right. Then we go to we've got Double Header. Okay, with Phil. Is that
with Phil Simmons or Phil? Well, it's Phil.
Yeah.
My mate. I also did Natural Born Trucker with Truckin' Bill.
Exactly right, and that's out there. So it's country.
And that went really well. Yeah. I mean that was we did tours to Brisbane and we got so much airplay with that. It was, that was a real good player.
You know, and then, you know, we've got Rocks here that's come out a few years ago. Then we've got Rock and Roll Man, which is all your favourite, you've, you know, done a covers album of your favourite songs.
Yes.
And again, Tush, you know, being the one that's getting all the streams there.
All right. You're good.
And, you know, then we've got some singles, Because We Ended as Lovers, and then we've got another album, Back to My Future. Then we've got another one, which is Old Rock and Roller, which is, you know, it's in process of all being released right now. And you've got a new album again. So, you know, you've become quite prolific in, I suppose, the second half of your career, or in the last hurdle of your career, you know, because you and me are in our tail end.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And so, you know, how do you find that? Do you find that you're a lot more prolific now with your writing, or is it because you have a studio in your home, so therefore it makes it more convenient? I mean, why become so much more prolific with your original releases now?
Probably because I'm not touring like I was and gigging, because gigging is I find gigging takes away the soul of the writing, because you can't sort of sit around and contemplate, which is what you need for lyrics and ideas for the music.
Yeah.
And also, I've always had a studio, you know, probably a couple of years there in New Zealand where I didn't, but
it is a big studio. It is a big. This isn't just for people listening. This isn't just a home studio. This is a full setup. I mean,
yeah.
You know, it is. You're fully laden up with a full studio.
Yeah, well, it's as much as I can keep it up to date, and I mean, I've got the guitars and amps that I need, and you know, I've got a circle of friends. I mean, I've got number of drummers and bass players and keyboard players that I can call on, and you know, we've got quite a good team. I mean,
and don't forget,
take us long to do.
Well, don't forget you've put out the 2 blues records with Alex Smith. You know, you got those. But as you said, there's the Scattered Aces. There's all these other side projects. Oh, the Blues Pirates also with Cletus.
Yes.
You know, so you've got so. But let's. So what is your love of music? So where does your love of music sit in its genre?
Well, look, I love rock and roll. If it makes you move, I'm not a fan of funky music. If it makes me tap my foot, it's rocking. I mean, there's a local band up here called The Flood, and boy, are they good. Yeah. And when they start to rock and roll, they've got me. And, you know, it's just, I love that. And when I used to watch the Small Faces or, you know, Steve Marriot's Moment, David Bowie, the one thing they all had in common is they were rocking, they were cooking, however you want to say it. It just picked you up and lifted you, had to move. Status quo. I mean, playing in the studio with Alan was an experience because he's a rock player and he'd lift the whole room would be rocking. That's what I love mainly.
You know,
and then
I saw, I watched a video on YouTube the other day, and we'll talk about this in a sec, but and it was T-Rex. Now it was a show. It was a matinee show, and so it would have been the mid-'70s. And anyway, it was just absolutely fantastic. And I didn't realise that T-Rex was such a good lead guitarist.
Yeah.
So I didn't realise that. I thought he was more a singer. And, you know, he played guitar, but he'd always have a lead player. But no, he did it. You know, I think that with what we have available, you know, with social media and with everything digitally these days, I do remember this show because I tried to get it on DVD. It came out once. His son had put it out about 20 years ago.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then it disappeared and you couldn't get it anymore. But I think now with the digital age, everything's becoming so much more possible. Now, there's the downside of the digital and there's the upside. You know, so I get the story all the time, Chris. What's the story? The story is, well, you know, it was, you know, we could make money when we had our vinyl and when we had our CDs. But that is for a certain generation. The thing is now with young people, they know how to social media, they know how to viral their product, and they can make a lot of money a lot of money in music. So it's still there. The problem for us has been, in my opinion, is that because we appeal to an older audience, that older audience haven't got across social media enough. They don't really stream and they don't search out anything new. So if they do anything, they remember David Bowie. So they're going to play David Bowie, or they're going to play Status Quo, or they're going to play Kiss or whatever. They don't go looking for anything new. They don't experiment. Whereas young kids, as soon as they hear something that they like, they send it to their friend who sends it to their friend who sends it to their friend. And that's what doesn't happen with the older generation.
Yeah.
But, how do you feel about everything? Because you've seen it now right through your whole entire career. How do you feel about it?
Look, I would say, to be cruel, it's the same circus, just different clowns. Like my first deal with RCA Victor was 3% of 90%.
Yeah.
And I've got a check on my studio wall for 35 cents that started off at $700. Minus this, minus that, divided there and this. So, that was a deposit on a house, $700 in those days, and it came down to 35 cents. So nothing's really changed.
No.
The only thing that changed for me was that I had my own record label, and everything I sold or we sold collectively kept us in business.
Yeah.
But unless you get rid of hit record, in the old days, we're all on the same level, really, aren't you?
Oh, no doubt about it. And I do get it all the time. I get it. It's like a scratched record. It keeps coming back to me, But we made so much money, And I say it honestly to a lot. I go, I want you to be honest with me. Did you make much money with vinyl? And they go, quite. I thought, well, you didn't have a hit, so I know you didn't make much money.
That's right.
With CDs, did you make a lot of money? Well, I go a bit quiet. No, because you didn't have a hit, so you didn't make much money. You might have sold a few gigs, but that's it. And nothing has really changed in that sense. What we used to do and spend in marketing and promo back then, you used to spend in marketing and promo online. There is a free part of it if you're good at social media.
Yep.
I think you're right, but we need to be very cognizant that what hasn't changed is the creative talents that come out of the individual and are released. That just doesn't change. You still got to write good material. You can't write crap. And here you are still recording material and putting it out at your age. That's a testament, and doesn't seem to be dying down at all. I think you'll be putting stuff out till the day you can play guitar.
Yeah, well, that's my feelings exactly. That this is what I've done all my life, and why should I stop? Because the industry's changing around me, and I have to pep talk quite a few of the guys around me who are really despondent. But nothing much has changed, and I point to this check on my studio wall. It's the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
absolutely. I think you're right on, and they just need to remember that. What happens is there's too much of back in the day. Who wants to hear? Wants to hear that? Back in the day. We're here today. If I went back now to the beginning of this interview with you, and we're talking about that young guy that was in England, seeing David Bowie and Frampton and Marriott playing. What a rich history, or a rich life of soaking in creative talent throughout your whole career and who you've worked with.
If you learn one thing off each of those guys, and I certainly did, because they were probably a year or two older than me. If you learn one thing, that's something else you carry.
Absolutely.
I don't know whether you've heard the new album, or not new now, by Jeff Beck and
no, I haven't.
What was his name? Johnny Depp. The guy is right up at the spear point of music still. He's dead now, unfortunately, but that guy is, and his producers, of course. The album is marvelous, and in its creativity and its innovation of studio techniques. Jeff Beck's playing digitally, which up until very recently I wouldn't look at, but I am now.
Yeah.
He's still pushing the envelope, and to me, that's fantastic. I mean, obviously he's got a huge market and bigger than mine, but it doesn't stop me or the people around me pushing the envelope too. What's the problem, you know?
I agree. So, you know, and I think you do have to be cognizant that when you're putting material together, you do know that there is a commercial audience and there's a non-commercial audience. And most punters out there have been educated by radio over the last 50 years, and therefore they only have a kind of a one-track mind in a lot of the music they're listening to. It's a very few that go off and experiment. And I suppose it doesn't change now with the young bands in that listeners get conditioned with social media because that's where they get it all. And again, it's, you know, okay, a playlist today is what radio was 30 years ago. We don't rate radio today. We only rate playlists because that's where you get your listens from. You have to be very cognizant that is where it is today, and that's where we head towards. With radio, you know, friends being in radio in Australia doesn't break new music anymore. And for a good reason, because they've got to make money themselves, and the listener doesn't want to hear. Yeah, I mean, my kids who are 23 now, they haven't listened to radio, I don't think, ever. They don't even know what radio. Like, what are you talking about? It doesn't.
Mine too. Yep.
Right. So it doesn't even come into their mind. So, and if I don't know if you put on the radio, I put it on in the car the other day, and it was the most boring shit I'd ever heard, and so I had to turn it off and put one of my playlists on. You know.
Yes. There's another point, then. Like, most of the people who are my age don't know how to put their music into their car because they've got new cars with no CD players. Yep. They haven't got a clue. And I say, well, you can link it to your phone through your Bluetooth or your whatever, and you've got a stick. You can put your favourite music on your... Oh, what are you talking about? They don't know how to do it. So they're almost forgetting about music because they don't know how to put it in their car.
I agree with that, 200%.
You know,
right?
So, I mean...
you've lost a whole audience. You've lost a whole audience there, right? But, you know, what I do is I put the playlist together, but they're basically all alike because Laneway's so big now, you know, even touching on it, I've got 6-hour playlists, and, you know, and that's just a tip of the iceberg. And... so I listen to that, and I just listen while I'm driving around, and I kind of go, wow, what a rich bunch of talented guys that we've got on Laneway, you know, and you go through it. And, you know, and there is your radio station. You stream that, you get paid for it. Okay, it's a 0.001 of a cent. I mean, we are, I've said this before in interviews, we are getting ready to launch a new platform, Laneway, and we will, it will be so much better for the artists and whatever, and we have high hopes for it because we don't know, no matter, I mean, I want to use the term, well, the head of Spotify, who started Spotify, who's the CEO, who he sold, I think he owns 40% now, or 20%.
Yeah.
This guy not only made all the money by selling his shares in that business, but he's on $24 million a year. Now, how could someone be on $24 million a year, and we know that the artists get paid zip? Then there's thousands of employees, and I ask you, what are all those employees doing? You know, we know with AI they'll probably all get the sack anyway. It's a joke. But you got that going. So we actually don't know. We'll never know what Spotify really make and why we get paid those low amounts. Now, remember, the major labels are in cahoots with them because they did the confidential deals, okay?
Yes.
So what you were talking about, I want this for the young listeners, what you were talking about, your first deal was 3.5%. I can assure you Buffalo's was 3%. Right? Yes. If you look at that, it's no different now. It's all the fat daddies making the money all the way down. The musician who's the creative talent who's actually supported their lifestyle, the executive's lifestyle, he or she gets nothing.
Yep.
And that's what's got to change. You know, you can't have people on millions of dollars. This whole thing of the disparity between, you know, salaries, and when people are on $5 million or $2.5 million, I think to myself, but that just means they're surrounded by good people, because if they were any good, they'd have their own company anyway. They wouldn't be, you know, in a company being paid $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7 million. They'd have their own business. How could they make those kind of decisions? Show me a decision they've made that's worth that kind of money. So then you get...
Well, and the other thing that you're getting to is that the general happiness of the population and everything will be a lot happier if things were a little bit more even. I mean, I'm saying you should get rewards for hard work. I mean, I'm all into that, but maybe a little bit more... you know, spread it a bit thinner, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, spread it out more.
And in the music industry is one of those ones where it's always been the same. The majors just making a fortune and the artists, except for the, 1 or 2% at the top, making all the money. And
yes.
Nobody, but I'll just drag it back to where I started. Is that we don't know. I couldn't really tell you what you earned through us with Spotify in the 0.0002 cents of a dollar, for every stream, and the different. Then there's different levels because there'll be the advertising based stream, there'll be the premium stream, and and on we go. We'll just muddy the waters even further, Yes. And so, I don't see anything's changed there. It's all the same. But what is the same is the creative talents of the people developing music. Of course, I had some people recently going, "Are you worried about AI and music?" I just burst out laughing. I thought, well, if I'm sure AI will develop some music and do what it's doing, but then you've got to have the creative talents too, and you make your music. And, otherwise, we're heading towards a Terminator society where it's all run by robots. Anyway, I mean, it just all that stuff goes on, and you think, well, come on, it's still get down there and write a song. Let's not talk about it. Just do it.
Well, that's the conversation I'm having with a number of my friends who are sort of scratching their heads and yelling at the sky, and but I think, guys, look at that check on the wall. Nothing's changed.
Exactly.
You just got to make music that does your heart good and keep going. What am I going to change professions now? I mean, what am I going to do now? I do what I do.
No, that's right. So look, and that's why we're looking. You got a whole new album coming.
Yes.
And, you tell me it's a little bit, Noisy Bastard, so it's going to be a little bit more rockier. Is that the case than the last one?
Yes. I'm trying to push the envelope because, we don't need another 12-bar blues and we don't need another silly pop song. So I've tried to do the lyrics a bit deeper. We've done this tune for Julian Assange.
Now, when's that coming out? In the next week or so, isn't it?
So, as soon as you give me the film clip back, we'll send it to her indoors in England.
Yeah.
And then you can put the single out whenever you like.
Yeah. Well, I think Dan's working on that, so you should have something in the next couple of hours on it.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Oh, wow. Okay. Yes, I'll get it off to her. The Noisy Bastards, later in the year, Rob and I have mixed it. Now what I'm doing is pushing the envelope a bit, getting a little bit more creative, using some of the electronic gadgets that are around. I've always recorded fairly cleanly and, a bit of delay, a bit of echo. Yeah. But now I'm pushing it a bit. You'll hear some different guitar sounds, different vocal sounds.
Are these as plugins on the software?
Yes. Yeah. I've got some good stuff that I've never used because I wasn't sort of thinking that. But I've heard a number of albums recently where the recordings are heavily drenched with effects.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've played it to my kids who are 30.
Yeah.
They seem to like it. So anyway, we're just, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Oh, absolutely. Now it's all about just get out as much product as you can because it's enjoy ourselves.
Yes.
As you said, it's not about making money now.
No. Look, I've got an album that is nearly finished that I've done with Alex Smith, Killer Kellett, Rob Grosser and myself. Is a very good album, but Alex is not looking like he's coming back to Australia anytime soon. So I might release that through you and just do it as a bunch of singles, if you like.
Yeah. Is that back to what the other one was, the old Blue Dogs?
No, this is much more commercial.
All right. No, let's go. Get it out. Just get it out. And let's have some.
Because it's just sitting here. Right. Yeah, that's the way I feel. Because Alex is stuck in Italy, really. You know, at the moment.
Yeah. I mean,
his moving pictures aren't going to raise their heads. You know.
I mean, I myself are playing with 3 different artists, and you know.
Are you?
Yeah. So it's just let's have fun. Let's get it out, you know, it's not about the money anymore. I'm on the tail end, so it's about have fun, be proud of what you're putting out, and you know, and enjoy the new environment that we work in as musicians, Chris, because it is here to stay. Nothing's going to change.
It's not going to go backwards.
Exactly. So we need to embrace it. You know, Chris, I get up in the morning and I look at the statistics of streams. So, you know, you might be one of them. I go there. I need to see whether there's been any spikes. And then during the day, there's some social media posts. Then at night, before I go to bed, I need to do more social media posts. So we do those. And then the next day, we have to review those, but we've got to do the same thing. And it happened day in, day out, you know. And, you know, you got to love your music to do it. I get excited when you say, I've got a new song for you, Vince. It's in the OneDrive. Man, I can't wait to download that thing and have a listen to it. And I do that with all the artists. It's,
great,
you know, to go, well, I wonder what this one sounds like. And to be the first one to hear it, you know, essentially, outside of your close-knit group.
Well,
and that's what's exciting. I mean, you know, we're working with Cletus. He's, you know, got a new song. He's sending me 2 or 3 to listen to see which one we release next.
And coming in next week to finish his stuff off. Yeah,
very exciting. You know, you know, Rob Gross is sending us, as you know. Rob's sending a new album over. You know, so it's you know, and who are the other guys? The Durham Project, which come by you guys.
Oh, Durham,
as I call the oldest guys in the business, and you listen to it, you know, it's all our granddads there, and man, it sounds fantastic. I mean, just fantastic, and it goes to show you why should we stop doing anything, Chris?
Well, that's what I say. It's too late to change professions now,
isn't it? You know, pick up.
Actually, I was rehearsing a new band last night called Runaway Train. What style? This recording. Well, I'm trying to do it like really fast rock and roll.
Yeah, okay.
Like rock and roll.
Are we talking what 50s, 60s rock and roll, or are we talking what I call rock and roll 70s?
No, 50s, 60s, but played now.
Right. Okay.
It's hard to explain what I'm trying to achieve with it, but once we start recording it, I'll send you a couple of snippets to see what you think. But Runaway Train more or less sums up what the music is.
Yeah. Well,
it's not rockabilly or anything like that. It's heavy. It's rock. It's loud.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, we know you as a lead guitarist. That's what you're known as. So that's what we expect from you. You know, we expect. I mean, it's like Joe Bonamassa. I mean, you get what you expect. He doesn't change. Kiss were the same. They always said that. We knew what we were. We weren't going to. AC/DC have always said it, as we all know.
Well, they were great, weren't they? I mean, Jesus.
Angus always says, we had a formula, we've never changed it. And why should we change it? He goes, that's what our punters want, and so that's what we deliver. And it's just the same. Each album's the same, and we love it. You know.
Yeah, I had a funny experience with them. The boys were at my house having a cup of tea or whatever, and I told them about Steve Marriot said to me. I was talking to him, saying, you know, giving him compliments on his band and his singing and whatever, and he said, "It's a Gaps rock," and they quoted me in their book.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, but it was actually Steve Marriot who said it to me. It's fantastic. But that's AC/DC. It's the Gaps that just
you know,
they're past masters.
You know, they've kept it together. It's the same old, and that's what their audience love. So why would you change that? I mean, it's interesting. And if you think about them too, you get other artists who go, I need to develop. I need to, get on with what I am and who I am and whatever. Now, I'm not saying that every record is exactly the same with AC/DC. They definitely enhance it and develop. But the basis of what they do is the same, as opposed to other artists which change their style so much all the time. And then,
well, they're trying to do a bit of everything, aren't they? It's just do what you do,
Exactly. If you're good at something, that's Joe Bonamassa has said that. He goes, I know what I'm good at, and I just stick to it, right? And that's that, and he delivers. Anyway, it's been good talking to you. We're looking forward to your new record, and
Thank you.
we still call it records, isn't that? Is that an interesting thing?
Isn't that? It's a record of what you've done.
There's no such thing as a record, but we're looking forward to it, and and plenty more records too from you, Chris. And as you said, you've got one there with Alex Smith just sitting there.
And this new Runaway Train will be available early next year. And
is there more Blues Pirates coming too?
Yes, Clevis is coming up next week. We're going to do that.
It's just amazing.
We've got a few tracks down already, so it's just a case of what Clevis is like. He's like Cadillac Briggs, and I've just got to grab him when he goes past.
Yeah, exactly. No, and for everybody listening too, you've had some injuries to your hands in the sand. Well, not injuries, but you've had hand issues, and obviously, I suppose because you play so much guitar, and you're getting over all of those kind of things too, and you just keep powering on, Chris.
Yeah, well, when I put the phone down here, I'm going to load my gear up and go to Miss Seeley's, which is a blues club, and do a gig tonight.
Well, in that case, we'll let you go, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Thanks, Vince.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Bye.
And there it is, another Laneway Talks. If you enjoyed that, there's more. Just search Laneway Talks for more great conversations.